A Moment for Love by Douglas Courtney. It had always seemed so easy, sometimes even a nuisance. Valentine's Day. A day to run to the store, grab a box of chocolates, a bouquet of roses, and declare once again undying love for your wife. Sure, I had gone through some of the early rituals as a teenager. I often wondered if I would even have anyone to call my Valentine. I stressed and worried, would I be the only student in the whole world who failed to secure a partner for Valentine's Day? But those days quickly ended when I found Pam. We hit it right off in our junior year. She was blonde with bright turquoise blue eyes, and as any teenage boy would know, I noticed she was also quite fit, at least as teenage girls go. But it was those eyes that drew me to her. I remembered thinking she must wear tinted contacts. The color was so perfect, but they were most assuredly hauntingly natural. She could hold my full, undivided attention with those eyes, which was saying a lot considering I was a teenage boy, not yet quite into full manhood. But in spite of my awkwardness and well of ignorance concerning women, Pam and I became great friends. Soon we were a couple, and from that year on, she was my only Valentine. Even during the 4 college years we spent apart, somehow, we always seemed to come together on Valentine's Day. I never wavered or worried again about who my Valentine would be. It was always Pam. Because she was there, Valentine's Day was easy. I was always made sure she had a large box of the finest candies and 2 dozen of the best red roses. When we could, and an evening out at our favorite restaurant. When we couldn't, a home-cooked meal in front of the fireplace. I do remember it was Valentine's Day when I first saw her as a woman. Not my friend or partner, but a woman. I learned that sort of thing sneaks up on you. It happened to me, and I saw it happening to my friends. These ladies in your life are at first some wonder to be discovered. Then, if you're lucky, they become friends with opinions and ideas. Then there are co-workers that challenge and even antagonize you. You fight with them, drink with them, even make love with them, but they are still just a partner, or a friend, or even a competitor. You care for them and about them, but you don't really see them as a woman. Then in a moment, you do. We were both 3 years out of college. She was in a high-pressure job trying to move past entry level to a solid contributor. I had a marketing position that was taking all my time as I was trying to impress potential clients. We both worked 60 hours a week, full of high-energy drinks and Chinese takeout. I had called a week before and cheesily asked her to be my Valentine. It had become something she looked forward to each year, where she once again would chastise me about my failure to seize other opportunities. We decided upon my apartment. My commissions had picked up over the previous year, and I was now settled in a 10th floor downtown pad with a view and a fireplace. Snow would be falling, and she wanted to see the snow against the lights. It will be romantic, she giggled into the phone. She could hear my smile even before I began. As romantic as it could be, Valentine's Day at my apartment meant I would be doing the cooking, so it might have been a quick trip to the store for the staples of the day, and a fine meal at an established restaurant became a task to perform on one of my busiest weeks. I was a bit irritated, but not at Pam, at myself. I just couldn't say no to that girl. Still, I had to agree being at home on Valentine's Day, especially a snowy weekend Valentine's Day, would be preferable to tackling the elements. The week was so busy I was tempted to get carryout, cheat just a little. But I knew that would break what Valentine's Day rules we had, so I opted to go to the store. Some tomato paste, tomato sauce, onions, ground beef, and spaghetti, along with family recipe soon turned into an Italian meal. I did get a prepackaged dessert, but it was her favorite, so I knew she wouldn't mind. Having a key to my apartment meant she didn't have to announce when she arrived. I heard the door open and slam shut, followed by a pair of high heels hitting the floor as they were tossed aside. Pam had arrived in a rush. I knew she was about to turn the corner from the foyer when I heard her coat fall to the floor. I poured her a glass of wine. Bastards! It's bloody cold out there, slush everywhere, and I need to wear heels to work, Pam said as she grabbed the glass I held out to her. She pushed herself onto one of the seats at the island separating the kitchen from the living area. I commiserated with her for a few minutes while the pasta cooked and the sauce simmered. She began her second glass of wine and swung around to look out the windows towards the view. Noticeably more relaxed, she took in the city's lights and the snowflakes towards the view, snowflakes reflected on the windows. I remember her taking a deep breath as if to shed all the day's irritations. She shuddered slightly, then took another sip of wine. Fire in the fireplace, soft jazz, and soft smells great. You looking to get lucky? Pam giggled softly. Only the best for my Valentine, I smiled as I moved to hand over this year's roses, safely concealed under the counter. Pam gathered them in her arms. She leaned in and filled her presents with their essence. A little chocolate and I might let down my reserve, Pam said as she smiled at me. Her eyes sparkled in the candlelight. Sounds like you know what to expect. Maybe I should change my routine, I grinned as I handed her the box of chocolates. Gimme, was all she said. And with one arm wrapped around the flower, she tore open the heart, holding her chocolate desire. Pam stopped eating chocolate long enough to savor the pasta, and soon we found ourselves sitting before the fireplace, our backs against the sofa. We snuggled close on the carpet, each of us with a glass of wine in her free hand. Her toes wiggled toward the fire, trying to catch its warmth. Pam's chocolate was close by. We talked about every little thing, the snow, work, our families. The night had grown softer with each drink, and every crack of ember slowly dying in the fireplace. Candlelight and the glow from a few recessed kitchen lights joined the fire as the only sources of light in a dark night. That was when I had my moment. After taking a sip of wine, Pam turned to me. Her lips were still moist from the drink, and she slowly moved her tongue over their fullness to relish the fading taste. Her face was soft, so soft without blemish or mark. Those turquoise eyes sparkled in the fading light and glanced at me. In a moment that could only be described as sultry, she lowered her eyelids softly, then opened them ever so slowly. It was as if she hungered for closeness, but dared not ask. The moment seared in my memory. I smelled her lingering perfume. I heard the distinct crackle of the fire. The taste of the wine was incredible, but I desired so much to take the taste from her lips. Time seemed to stop, and when I gazed upon Pam, she was no longer friend, companion, or even lover. Pam was a woman. It was a feeling I could never be replaced or forgotten. A tear fell from my eye as I knew what was before could never be again. I needed her, I desired her, I wanted her. Pam gazed at the tear and moved to catch it on her fingertips. Her eyes began to water as I moved over to drink my fill of her tender lips. Pam turned to me, placed her arms around me, and pulled me to her. Her kisses were passionate, deep, and hungry. It was as if she finally was allowed the meal she had so long been denied. My shirt fell to the wayside, ripped from my body by Pam's nails. Her hands touched, felt, and caressed what she now knew was hers. We made love before the fireplace, and I carried her to my bed. Pam's hunger was sated 2 hours later, and we fell asleep into each other's arms. We had been friends for too long to deny the next morning what had happened. Pam arose with my sheet wrapped around her naked form and made her way to the kitchen. I was making coffee, wearing nothing but my briefs. "What now, Jeff?" Pam asked quietly. Her eyes looked deep into mine. I knew she was unsure and a bit frightened. So was I. I took her hand and pulled her to me. I leaned down and kissed her deeply again, hoping my eyes, actions, and thoughts could all easily be read. When we parted, her smile filled my heart. I reached back to her bouquet of roses and plucked out a single flower. I handed it to her as my offering. "Yes," she said, "but I still want a ring." We married 2 months later, and she remained my Valentine for the next 5 years. Each and every year, I gave her one rose from her Valentine's bouquet at the next morning's breakfast to remind us of our moment. It was fate's nasty turn that took Pam from me after those 5 years. We'd known something was wrong. We'd tried for a couple of rug rats to complete our small family, but nothing seemed to work. We went to the doctor in search of a solution, but came home with utter devastation. Pam had cervical cancer. The news ripped my heart apart and reduced us both to sobbing hulks. She fought hard to survive. She took her therapy, laughed when she could, and held me tight when she couldn't. We huddled together for a week before she left me. We were alone with a large blanket wrapped around us. She could barely speak due to the treatments in her illness. Her head was on my chest. Her body seemed to weigh little more than the blanket that enfolded us. She turned those turquoise eyes to mine. I looked softly into her beautiful soul. It was then, in a quiet and choke-filled sob, she begged me to move on. Tears fell. I held her tight and cried hard. Pam lifted a single rose to my hand and made me promise. It was so final, it hurt so much. I took the rose as my heart died. I laid Pam to rest. After a few months, the well-wishers moved on and families resumed their lives. I took a short break, sat in the sun on some foreign beach, and cried softly to myself. I found a hollowness and ache that I could not escape. Valentine's Day still came and went, but I studiously avoided it. The smell of a rose or a box of chocolates reminded me of her book look that night. An unbidden tear would form at the memories, and I would once again succumb to an uncomfortable melancholy. Valentine had been our day. I didn't wish to share it with anyone else. I did try to keep my promise to Pam. I dated and even had a relationship that lasted a whole 2 weeks. But my heart wasn't in it. Another effort found me at a local restaurant in an unremarkable place. It was geared to the upwardly mobile and burnished wooden tables and chairs and cute cubicles surrounded by ferns and plants that gave a measure of privacy for couples. "I'm not Pam," the young lady beside me remarked quietly. The comment pierced my thoughts and caught me by surprise. I turned my head to look at tonight's companion. I don't think I really had noticed her until then. I slowly placed my drink on the table and quietly took her measure. Her hair was almost blonde with a touch of brown. Her build seemed slight from what I could see. She wore a black top that fell from her shoulders to create a dip that graced the top of her breast. Her mouth was full but not wide and had 1 or 2 small laugh lines at the edges. What struck me most were her eyes, azure blue. I was surprised I had not noticed earlier. "I'm not Pam," she said again. "I know, Sherry." Sherry let out a small sigh. Some tension inside her was finally released. I know what you might be going through," she said, "so you just want to sit here and have a bite to eat. It's okay with me." "It's been quite some time, Sherry," I started to protest. Sherry put up her hand and waved me off. "I know how tough it is. There's no need to explain. I'm just glad to be out of my apartment, actually. And nice to spend some time with someone without an agenda." She giggled a small giggle. I smiled back. "What kind of agenda?" "The usual, trying to help you get over your loss, or worse, trying to get you back on the horse, so to speak." Sherry grinned at the last line as though a secret taboo had been raised. I laughed, a genuine laugh. It had been a while since I had actually done that. Then it finally broke through the barricades around my brain that, if she knew, she had to endure it. I became serious and leaned to her. "May I ask?" I began. "Todd, he was my husband, still not over that. Airplane crash," Sherry replied. "Sorry, I didn't mean it to sound so rote, but the questions and answers never vary." Our dinners arrived in time to briefly interrupt the conversation, but the idea that someone else had suffered a similar loss had shaken me. I recognized how self-centered I'd become. After the china had been settled and more wine poured, I leaned forward. "First date, actual date, not an encounter," I smiled. Sherry paused mid-bite and then grinned. "Alto Theater, some forgettable production, Chinese for dinner. Oh God, it was an awful night. Your turn. Worst present to her. Bicycle lock. Probably gave it to her right after her bike was stolen. I swear I didn't know it had been." Sherry and I played the game all through dinner and into dessert. We were laughing and in tears by the time the final drinks had been ordered. After dinner, I took her home, kissed her on the forehead, and asked to see her again. She said yes. Our encounters became more and more frequent after that first night. Comrades in the same foxhole, as it were. As long as we were going out together, our friends and co-workers stopped trying to set us up. We also enjoyed each other's company. We had formed a simple platonic relationship that met our needs and cocooned us from the vagaries of life. Still, there were barriers and minefields that neither one of us dared cross. I occasionally wondered if I ever could freely love again. Sometimes just being happy with another woman made me feel as though I had betrayed Pam. I knew Sherry had similar feelings about Todd. It was on one of those evenings when everything seemed to be going right that it suddenly all went wrong. It was early fall, a full moon out, leaves were falling, night wasn't quite as dark, and we were walking in a small park to another quick dinner. Sherry laughed at one of my anecdotes of the day, and I got the shivers. I reached out without thinking, and she reached back. We were holding hands, just holding hands, and Sherry suddenly froze. No, not now," Sherry cried painfully, and she pulled her hand from mine as if it had been immersed in boiling water. Sherry looked at me with a pained expression. I looked down at my hand and then at hers, now held tightly in her other. I moved to the bench and sat on it as a defeated man. There had been no intent beyond simple kindness, and yet even the touch of another had questioned our faithfulness. Sherry sat down beside me. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean." She fell into a depth of tears. I didn't know what to do, and I wanted to hold her, tell her things would be all right. But if simply holding hands had this impact upon us, what would a full-blown hug do? Chivalry won out. I raised my arm to the back of the bench. Sherry fell against my chest and sobbed. I moved my arm to encompass her and she melted into me. After a few moments, she sat up and I released my grip. What's happening between us, Jeff? Where's this going? Sherry asked. I hesitated. I looked at her, then at our surroundings. I didn't know. I never thought to consider. I just wanted friendship, but I had to admit there was more than that I needed. It's hard, Sherry. I don't have the answer. You're more than a friend. I quite enjoy your company, but I trailed off. There was no safe answer. But you're afraid, she said, afraid to come any closer, afraid to alienate the one person that brought you happiness, afraid to disturb the ghosts of those we love. Sherry finished my thoughts in a whisper only I could hear. I nodded and looked plaintively at her face. She looked back with tear-stained eyes and nodded as well. I know, Jeff. I feel the same. I like the happiness, Sherry. I don't think I can live like a monk for the rest of my life, but she was such a part of me. Can I? Should I even care for another like I did her? The words were spoken and the barrier broken. The hardness that had held my heart for so long shattered on a bench in the park next to a woman I wasn't supposed to love. Maybe not like her, maybe differently. I do love music, rock and jazz. Don't laugh, Sherry began with a small smile. I don't like each one the same way. They both appeal to me, but differently. I love them both equally. Maybe we can learn to love another song and keep the original melody. Sherry looked at me with small, pleading eyes. Could I make new memories? Could I love another? I suddenly realized I already had. I reached out my hand. Sherry moved hers into mine, and we grasped each other tightly. For the first time in a long time, my heart felt lighter. We took it slow, but it became obvious to friends and family that we were more than a couple. Fall turned into winter, Christmas came, and I enjoyed the touch of her lips on mine New Year's Eve. However, as January progressed toward February, I became more and more melancholy. Valentine's Day was our day, Pam's and mine. No matter the joy I had with Sherry, that ghost had not been banished, and I didn't know how to banish it. We had been open enough about our past lives that Sherry never pushed Valentine's Day, but it seemed to me it was a final memory that had to be filed away. I resolved to claim this day by honoring Pam while loving Sherry. There would be no chocolate and roses. Home-cooked dinner was out. We would make our own memories. We would celebrate Valentine's Day Eve at one of our favorite restaurants. Small tokens of jewelry and stuffed bears would replace chocolates and roses. It was all planned. It was all set. And the ghost of Valentine's Day past laughed. The restaurant was struck by fire, the jeweler lost the bracelet, and the stuffed bear didn't survive its brief encounter with the truck when it fell from my arms into the street. To top it all off, it snowed. Not only snowed, it became a blizzard, socking everything in on February 13th. It was as if Pam was challenging me to meet her head on. I could hear her laughter in my mind as each and every small calamity befell me. I grinned at the thought of her teasing me, and I accepted the challenge. By 4 o'clock on Valentine's Day, I had secured some Bavarian chocolates, a small bouquet of white roses, and another reservation. I relished my last minute's triumph and called Sherry to tell her I'd pick her up at 7. She said she'd be running late, so she'd meet me at my apartment. I agreed, and Valentine's Day was conquered. I had banished the final ghost. This day would be mine and Sherry's with our own tales to tell, or so I believed. Sherry arrived just as the electricity for the entire block went out. Elevators stopped, businesses closed, snow continued to fall. We were trapped in my apartment with only candles in the fireplace to keep us warm. Sherry lit another candle on the kitchen island, then pulled herself up on one of its stools. I poured a glass of wine. Looks like we'll be stuck here a while. Anything to eat? Sherry asked. I could see she was as uncomfortable as I. I raised my finger, went to the cupboard, and found all the ingredients for my famous spaghetti. Using a match, I lit the gas burners on the stove and got the pot boiling. It wasn't too long before the familiar smell of pasta sauce permeated the kitchen. As I was cooking, the similarities with my special Valentine's Day night with Pam did not go unnoticed. As Sherry chatted, I reached under the counter and produced the bouquet of white roses. Sherry brought them to her face. She raised her head with a beautiful smile spread across her lips. It wasn't long before dinner was ready. We settled in at the counter and kept a small fire on the stove lit for warmth. We laughed and giggled, but Pam still nagged at the corner of my memories. We settled in front of the fireplace. The occasional snowflake reflected the light from our fire to assure us it was indeed still snowing outside. I used my phone to play some music, and Sherry kicked off her shoes to let the fire tickle her toes. I reached for the chocolates I had hidden close by and gave them to her. She squealed just a bit and then opened them. First one, then another tiny nugget was tested, then eaten. Sherry snuggled against my arm and laid her head on my chest. The memories were too strong. In the darkness, I began to shed a few tears for my lost Pam. Then the darkened windows looked up on a darkened city. For a moment, I swore I could see my Pam in their reflection. I was about to stand and cry out when a voice spoke out. Now, look now. I turned my head and saw Sherry taking a drink of red wine. Her face was soft and happy. She was comforted in my arms. A bit of wine dripped on her lips and her tongue licked it away. In that moment, I saw Sherry. I saw her as a woman, not a friend, not a lover, not a partner. She was a woman, the woman, and I fell deeply in love again. I turned to Sherry and kissed her lips. I savored the taste of her wine, but filled my soul with the taste of her flesh. Sherry responded strongly. It had been so long. Her arms pulled me greedily to her. She took what she wanted, and she wanted it all. We stayed there on the carpet in front of the fireplace until the music died. Our passion was uninterrupted and strong. As late evening turned into early morning, I carried her to my bed. She pressed herself against my chest the whole way, then pulled me to her once again as I lay her down on the sheets. We continued our passions until we fell asleep in each other's arms. Sherry woke the next morning, wrapped a sheet around herself, and made her way to the kitchen. I was standing in my briefs making breakfast. A job, a cook, and a lover. Sherry smiled as she pulled herself onto one of the stools next to the island. A man definitely worth pursuing. I turned around to get the toast. When I turned back, Sherry was holding a single red rose up to her face to breathe in its perfume. Where did you find the rose? It was lying on the counter. I thought you put it there. I smiled. Sherry continued to hold it against her beautiful face. Her hair, disheveled, fell wonderfully in framing her features. The rose was red, but I had only bought white ones. Probably it was an outlier, had been tucked in the original bouquet, but I took it as a sign that Pam was finally at peace, and now so was I. I leaned across the counter, moved the rose, and kissed Sherry one more time. Happy Valentine's, I whispered, and that's the end.